Hi, I'm Diane Dressbeck, and I have Melissa Farley with me, and we are interviewing today Danyelle Cavaness-Weatherford. Thank you, Danyelle, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Danyelle is a chapter writer in the compilation book From Us for You, Inspiring Stories of Healing, Growth, and Transformation. And I met you, Danyelle, when I lived in Austin, and you were the gracious host of a location where we shot a short film. So you let us come in and disrupt everything in your house for a couple of days. And I really appreciate that. But that's where I first met you. And then I always remember sitting out on the lawn after we were all done. The whole thing was wrapped, everybody was gone, and you and I were sitting on the front lawn and had a really really nice chat there. So I'm so happy that you are a part of this project that we're working on. So why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Okie dokie. Well, I'm glad to be here, and I do remember that. And with my house, by the way, my house got transformed and redecorated, which was wonderful because I wasn't planning on doing that for a little while. So thank you for that. I like having a decorating team that I don't have to pay all the time to come do that. So I appreciate that. My name is Danyelle Weatherford, Danyelle Cavaness-Weatherford, and Cavaness, of course, is my maiden name. And I live in Round Rock, Texas. And we just got through with a lovely storm here. But yeah, so I live in Round Rock, Texas. Been here for 16 years. And the thing I do for a living now is I do filmmaking. I'm a producer and director and an actress, as well as I'm a chief operating officer for an entertainment company that also has a production side, as well as a tech company side. So we're going to change the face of independent film and have a place for independent filmmakers to come to showcase their lovely work. So that's part of the thing that I do. I'm also a mom. I have two boys. One's about to graduate from high school. I'm a sad this little bit there, and then I have an 11-year-old little boy and my dog Winter, and a husband. Husband is low on the totem pole, not really, but anyway, he needs to be known there. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, husband. Sorry, husband.
He's an awesome
Well,
guy. I should have put him a little bit higher, but hey, but
eh.
yeah.
Danyelle, that sounds like such amazing work you're doing. And we'll have to have a little chat because I'm a filmmaker as well. And I'd love to hear what you're working on for independent film. I just have not a short, my first feature. So I would love to chat with you.
Ooh, yeah,
That.
anytime.
But yeah, okay, cool. Let's talk more though about your chapter. We don't want to give everything away. We want people to still, want to read it, but give us a little bit of what you wrote about for Diane's compilation.
What I wrote about in a roundabout way is I feel like everybody is born at the time they're supposed to be born. And the effect that that has on their lives and the interactions that people have on their lives really means something. And I never want anybody to forget that they're meant to be here. They're always meant to be here, and you have a purpose. And you might not know what that is, but the interactions that you have with others begin to frame that purpose, and they can slow you down or they can advance you quickly or further than you even thought possible.
So, okay. So hold on, because that's not what I was expecting you to say you wrote about. So I'm so intrigued by this topic. So when you say that people were born when they were meant to be born, are you talking more of like a predetermined kind of manifestation thing? Or are you talking like astrology? Like what approach are we taking here when you
So
when you
I come
say
from
that?
a Christian philosophy. So God is
Okay.
my framer, and He framed me in a sense, is how I believe. And I think that He has positioned you in the time that you're supposed to be positioned to be on this planet to affect whatever He wants you to affect on His behalf. And so all those ancestors that have come before me, have given me the framework or the groundwork for me to be able to do what I'm supposed to do. Now, maybe they had some issues that may have entered into their lives, and I think those play out the way they're supposed to be, but those may slow you down as well. And issues could be maybe somebody is alcoholism runs in my family. And so that's a detriment to the body in a sense. And so the progress that you could have made in certain circumstances may have slowed you down. And so it's that God still has a purpose for you in my mind. And he may detour you and put those things into action when they're supposed to be in action. And so you just have to pay attention. And there's circumstances that I came across that I probably, had I been given better tools, would have been to the course where he wanted me to be a little sooner, probably, because I just chose to go down that path rather than really pay attention to go this way. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great segue into the famous question that we've been asking every author, which is, we come from a place a lot of times in society where we really value wins and success, but I personally feel like learning from failure is just as important. And there's a lot of really important lessons that can come from failure. And so you kind of talked about, going down some different paths, and you probably learned some lessons from going down those paths.
Yeah.
Would you sharing maybe an experience that at some point you might have perceived as failure, but you actually learned something really important, or were able to make some different decisions in your life because of that circumstance?
Oh yeah, I'll even go back. Let's see. I'll go to childhood. When when I was in high school, I was that girl that I was the cheerleader, I was the basketball player, I did all these different things. And there came a point to where I was studying really hard, but the dysfunction around me and my family, I didn't really understand how to handle it, and that affected my thinking. And rather than reach out a whole lot, I reached out to get tutoring in certain classes, but I didn't really understand how that was supposed to play out. So I didn't reach out to my parents. I ended up failing math, and the world that I was in came kind of crushing down when I got kicked off of basketball. I got kicked out of cheerleading. I couldn't run track. I couldn't do anything anymore. And so the status where I was, I had to be humbled tremendously and had to really rethink of what that meant to me in a sense, and the way people thought about me, a whole bunch of different things. And realizing that, one, I didn't tell my parents. I should have told my parents what was going on. Where
Mhm.
as a child or a teenager, you're in a child in a sense. You think you're all that, and you can handle it all. But there are those parents, those people that have wisdom beyond you, that can help you in a lot of different ways. And so I reached out to a teacher. It was a teacher, the teacher that failed me. But I tried to do in that circumstance, I tried to get help. I tried to get tutoring. And there's a lot of dynamics surrounding that specific circumstance that didn't necessarily should have been played out like they were, but nonetheless, I failed. And so
Mm.
from that lesson, I learned to ask a whole lot. Ask, because you'll probably seek different paths from other teachers, perhaps friends, and their parents, whatever that is. But and it's okay to be humbled as well. So
Yeah.
those status symbols that I thought, the cheerleading, I'm all that because of cheerleading or whatever. And the other piece of that is I was the first Black cheerleader in my area, and so it there was some racial things happening in the community that I was in, and so I felt like I let people down. And
Mhm.
so that's a little too much to take on at that age,
Right.
realizing that, that's a whole nother conversation where adult would have helped me as well in those circumstances. But yeah, that's just one of many failures. And I believe in failure, just like, yeah, you learn so much through failure, so
Yeah.
much through failure.
And I think that's such a relatable thing because, even though you were a child at the time, I think there's so many adults still at this point in later in life that still have a hard time asking, right, for
Yes.
help, asking for assistance in certain parts of their life. And it's a detriment to them in the long run. So I think that's such an important thing to share. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Um, I'm curious, kind of at what point were you in your life when you started really embracing and accepting this concept of everybody was born when they were meant to be born? When did that really become a thing for you?
I think I taught a class on Esther probably 10 years ago. And I thought about it, I felt it. But there was something in that story. And for those of people that may not know about Esther, she is a person in the Bible that is referenced, one of the women that is referenced in a high level. And she was Jewish, and she got to a certain point to where she was in an environment to where she was able to get the attention of the king. And the long story short, she was able to help her people not be killed. So that story told me, and then they reference for such a time as this. She's born as such a time as this in the story. And I've always felt like I've had this connection to that particular person. Don't know, but anyway, I feel like I have this connection to her. And so I started really thinking about that deeper, because it's always been there, wondering what my time as this, considering everything I've gone through, did it make any sense? Do I really affect the person that I sit for a few minutes on the airplane with, and I have a really deep discussion with? Once we leave each other, did anything, touch that person, and vice versa? And I have to say, for me, yes. And then the other people that maybe I've affected their lives as I've gone through time. Um, my dad died years ago in 2005, and he he a lot of people talked about how much my dad meant to them. And I found a box of letters and they were all addressed to my dad, telling him how much. I mean, there's hundreds of letters in this box, and telling him how much that they had changed his life. He had changed their lives.
Mm.
And it's because he went on this walk called the Emmaus Walk. Anyway, he was an alcoholic, and he had helped so many people through their journey. And I was like, when he died, I was wondering, why did he die? Why did he have to die the way he died? It was terrible the way he died. And the night before the funeral, something came to me, and I wrote, "There is a reason." And it was all about my dad. So I spoke. I wasn't planning on speaking at his funeral because I didn't think I could do it. But then that's what came out of me. And so there is a reason why everybody exists for such a time as this. So coupled with the Esther thing was before, actually it was right before my dad died. And then that made me really realize there's a reason why we're here. You have to believe that you are truly valuable and you have a purpose.
The answer that you gave just like was so kind of profound and made me think about every single interaction that I have in my life, with each person. And it really is kind of that mindfulness component, right? Of
Being
just
mindful.
being very present. Yeah.
Yeah, being
I think
present.
that's important right now. So I'm curious, I think it's important for a lot of young people, and not just young people, but even people that are in their adulthood, to have role models, to have people that they really respect and admire, or even people that are just willing to be vulnerable and talk about things openly and have those hard discussions. Do you have people like that in your life, either, close relations, or maybe they're celebrities or mentors? Like who are those people for you that have inspired you along the way?
There are, it's two of those people are my parents. They probably would not even think that I would say that for all the stuff that we've gone through. But yeah, it's the stuff they've gone through that I admire, and how they came on the other side. Um, so there's those two. There's people that I don't necessarily like, but they have been mentors. So there's bosses who were determined to not allow me to climb the corporate ladder, that that were mentors, and I looked at them not necessarily for the character that they weren't, and they gave me what the type of person that I wanted to become. I've had a number of those, but I've also had some really, really cool friends. I would think it's those friends that stuck by me. I think, and most people have no clue that they have been that to me. And so
Mm.
I appreciate them in ways that I just love them, but I've not necessarily told them that they were an inspiration to me all the time. So there's been a few, but rarely have I said that. I think it embarrassed them, some of these guys. But it's just the character and the consistency that they've had through life and through their own circumstances, and how they've been in front of other people.
Right.
So yeah, there could be doctors, and there's doctors. Um, uh, there's actors. I mean, if Denzel Washington is probably, if I could say, he doesn't yet have a clue about me, but his consistency. And as an actress, he is one that I have modeled some of the way I do things, because not the way he acts, it's the roles he chooses and why he chooses them, and the way I perceive how he chooses them. Um, Even if he's the bad guy in it, there appears to me, in the stories that I've watched, there appears to me to be a really great outcome, or somebody gets their comeupping some way in the story. So there's something that is justified in almost everything that he does, to me, that he takes. And so there's a wisdom attached to the stories that he takes. So
Hmm.
that's and then there's the wisdom outside of what he does. His consistent with his family, himself, and to his God. And so yeah.
I love that.
I want to follow up on that because, you were sharing about, the people that have mentored you, whether
Yeah.
they knew it or not. But you're also, I mean, you claim to have a global voice for healing and inspiration.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that work.
Well, what do you mean by that? What do you
Well,
mean? What?
I'm just, I mean, how do you feel that you personally are a global voice for healing or encouraging other people, or how do you go about doing that?
I think that's a great question. I've never been asked that question, so that's a great question. The foundation of that is to know that I have a purpose while I'm here, and to sit on the wisdom that I've acquired, or the network that I have fortunately been able to acquire as well, is not purposeful. It's rude, um, not to share what you've been given and act like it's just yours. It's just your own little thing that you're supposed to keep over in this corner. And so, if there's a way, I think it's neglecting anyone in the world if you do not share that, if you don't reach out. If you I have a hard time with it at times, because I feel like the light is on me, which I am a conduit, in a sense, to me, for God's truth. And so I have to be able to, and I have to do what I'm supposed to be here to do. So reaching out through Facebook, being a breast cancer survivor, so there's something there with that, and knowing all that information, all that research I did, all these doctors that I spoke to, which people don't typically do what I do when it comes to that caliber of research. Um, Reaching this thing that we're doing right now, this thing reaches audiences like never before. And so if I can reach someone in Africa or in New Zealand with the information that I have, to change their trajectory of giving up, maybe, and helping them to see that there is life beyond where they're at, for the pain that they may go through, because going through breast cancer is that alone was extremely painful. Alcoholism, being the child of an alcoholic, extremely painful. Having a boyfriend abuse you, extremely painful. But and then the business stuff, there's so many people trying to start something new, and knowing that when it gets hard, they don't give up. So having this medium and having the information in me, you have to keep going. And if I don't, then I've failed the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why I do what I do.
So let me ask you, how do you keep going? Because, that sounds like so much pressure, to be this conduit, to have this calling. How do you stay so purposeful all the time with everything that you do?
I don't stay purposeful all the time. No, I mean, straight up, I don't stay purposeful all the time. And that nobody in the Bible, if they when they read that, you'll notice that there are those, and there's chapters in there that talk about the depression, the depths of people. There's the highs and the lows, but I do have my faith. And that would be, even when I'm sad, I know there's a way out. And I've been there to think that, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could ever do this again. So the faith is my foundation when it comes to that. But I do think, knowing that I can come back out. Um, so right now, I'm overwhelmed in life. There's a lot of going on. And I am farther from, I have my faith, but I'm farther from those conversations with the maker that I have right now. And so it's like, it's struggle for me to just study some days because I'm in contracts. So my priorities are off. But I'm aware of it. So I stay aware. I stay that it's okay. Whereas before, I wouldn't have given myself an okay when I was younger. It would have been, oh, I'm falling apart. Oh, this, oh, that. I wouldn't have had an okay. So I'm okay with that because I'll get back on track. And believe it or not, something like we're doing right now gets me back on track because it
Good.
helps me to hear what I know to be true.
Right. That's
So yeah, yeah.
so let me ask you, I know that the pandemic interrupted a lot of plans, also presented a lot of unexpected gifts for people. And so I'm curious, 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? What are you working on? What are you passionate about? What are you doing in 5 years?
5 years, 5 years. So how's my 11-year-old? He'll be 16. So that comes first, making sure that my kids are happy and healthy, and the husband is happy and healthy, and me too. That's first. So my health. So my relationships are happy and healthy. Professionally, before the pandemic, so that you mentioned the pandemic, before the pandemic, I was starting a huge project. And it was to reach out to the breast cancer community. I was in the process of designing and having my own facility built here in Austin, Texas, to to cater to people that look like me, underfunded, served communities, as well as just helping the cancer community have better resources. So it was a really cool facility. Um, well, that stalled because of the pandemic. So we're rethinking on how to go about that. And so I was asked to be a chief operating officer for a company, for the entertainment company. So in 5 years, we're going to be as big as the Disneys, the Hulus, the Netflixes. It's that caliber of product that we're doing. And so, and it's that type of thing that we're doing. So that's where one of them is. And the other one, I hope, will be back to where I started. So when it comes professionally, that's where I will be. So maybe I'll be acting too a little bit here and there. So
Well,
yeah, so that's some of the things that I have to do, as well as speaking. I love to speak. Love to speak. I want to keep changing lives. So
you're a very articulate woman, and I
thank you.
aspire to be that way. I have one last question for you, Danyelle,
Yeah.
and that is, while you were writing the chapter for the compilation book, can you pinpoint maybe one thing that you learned about yourself?
Wow. Oh well, I think I forgot some of the stuff. You pulled a lot of things out of me that I had not paid attention to, um, and I didn't see some of the connections as much as I thought I knew. So I didn't realize that I experienced as much as I experienced, which is really kind of odd to me when you're looking through it, knowing that I've been through all of this stuff, and I talk about it in pieces, but the way the way everything was connected, I don't think people pay attention to how things connect to each other, and how the little connections and switching some of those connections um, in life can send you on different paths. And I think as parents, when we have kids, we can see through them the different connections. Oh, don't do this because this may happen. But seeing my own path, knowing and seeing exactly where those decisions not right in some circumstances. But yeah, I'm reliving myself in a sense as I see my kids in those stages and realizing the different connections and experiences.
Mhm.
That's fascinating to me.
It's interesting how I guess it just makes sense as as you get older, you start to look back and say, "Oh, I know why that happened," or "That makes sense now," and
Yeah.
I can see those, connections, putting those things together. So,
Yeah, and my mom as well. So I'm my mom's age in some those circumstances as well, and seeing the decisions that she made, and reflecting on being present, seeing history, our our speaking through history in a sense, and seeing my children play out, my parents play out, as well as her parents play out in that whole process. It was quite interesting to me.
yeah. Well, good. Well, I'm looking forward to sharing your story as well as Melissa's and everybody else's story that they've written in the book. And I think people will be inspired by your chapter for sure. So,
Well, thank you. I feel
mhm,
I'm so glad you asked me to do it. It was very um, releasing to do it.
mhm. So, well, thank you for talking with Melissa and I. It was really nice to see your face again. It's been a
Same
little
here.
while.
Same
Thank you.
here. And I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing
Good.
well.
Yes, yes. So, anyway, so thank you. Thank you to those of you that are watching. If you'd like to share the video, please do. And if you'd like more information about the book, you can go to FromUsForYou.com and get all the details there. So thank you, ladies, and make it a very hopeful day.